Here we are still in lesson 4.2, and I'm going to talk to you about example 5. And this example is focusing on vertical asymptotes. And a reminder that when we're looking for these, we're asking ourselves, what values of x make the denominator 0? So we want to try to factor everything that we can. Now this numerator will not factor, this 2x squared minus 7, that will not factor. So we're going to try to factor the denominator, and so we want to find numbers that multiply to 20 but add to negative 9, and that's going to be x minus 5 and x minus 4. And again, we're trying to find those zeros, so we're going to set each one of those equal to 0, and that's going to give us x equals 5 and also x equals 4. So these are going to be vertical asymptotes. I'm going to do a little extension to this question. I'm also going to ask you about the horizontal asymptotes. And to do that, we want to go just a little bit higher on the page here. Remember, that's your case 1, 2, or 3, where we're comparing the degrees of the numerator to the degree of the denominator. In our question, the degree of our numerator is 2. The degree of the denominator is also 2. So they are equal, and this is going to take us to that case number 3, where those are equal, and we want to build a ratio for the leading coefficient of the numerator to the leading coefficient of the denominator. And for us, that's 2 to 1. That is going to generate a horizontal asymptote for y equals 2. So again, that's just an extension of example number 5. What we actually had to answer was, what are the vertical asymptotes? We took the denominator, we factored it, we set each of those little binomials equal to 0 and solved for x. So when x is 5, the denominator will be 0, and when x is 4, the denominator will be 0, and those are your vertical asymptotes. Okay, we're going to now move over to example 6, and again, we're looking for where the denominator is 0. I mentioned in the last example we wanted to factor the numerator if we could. It wouldn't, but this one will. So I'm going to ask you to go ahead and factor both the numerator and the denominator. Now, I can just tell you what it is, but it'd probably be a good idea for you to stop and pause this and find your results or your factored form. So I'm going to encourage you to do that, and I'll wait. I'm going to go ahead now and write in what they actually are. This will be x minus 7 times x plus 2. And then the denominator will factor into x plus 6, x plus 2. And you'll notice on this one, we have a numerator piece and a denominator piece that are exactly the same. That's different than we've had on our other questions. So initially, we're looking for the values for our vertical asymptotes that will make our denominator 0, and that would be x equals negative 6, and it would be x equals negative 2. However, this scenario is a little different. Since we have exact matching pieces, both numerator and denominator, this x equals negative 2 is not a vertical asymptote. It turns out to be a hole in the graph. Now, what something like that might look like is when x is negative 2, if we have a graph, we might get to the negative 2 value and we'd have a hole in it, something like that. Some calculators, you'll actually get to see the hole. Other calculators, it'll just be a space when you graph it. And we're going to look at some of that, investigate some of that together in class when I am there, and we can look at that a little more in detail. So the only vertical asymptote that this question has is actually the x equals -6. The other one that we thought was a vertical asymptote actually ends up being a hole in the graph and not an actual asymptote.